Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining us this week on the Extra Point Show, the fastest growing sports podcast or football podcast on the internet and YouTube. Actually, that's probably not true, but we have been growing a lot, so we definitely appreciate that. I'm sure that show is out there somewhere. So we do appreciate all your continued support. So and if you're not already, make sure that you like and follow.
Definitely. So we got one day until real football begins.
Yep.
Starting with the Bills versus the Rams, which should prove to be a extremely entertaining game to watch, I think.
Yeah, I think that game's gonna, the NFL usually does a great job of starting the season off with a banger. Last season, the Thursday game was Buccaneers Cowboys, and it was a game where the Bucs, I think, kicked the field goal right at the end to beat them. So the Cowboys, obviously, they've got the Bucs in the week one matchup again this week. But
do they? Oh wow, that's odd. 2 years in a row.
So two straight years, yeah. But this
Bucs.
Bills Rams, go Bucs for sure.
Coming from Tampa.
yeah. We'll talk more about Tom here in a minute, and hoping that his head's in the right place for that game.
Right.
But yeah, so interesting matchup here between the Super Bowl champion Rams and a very good Bills team in the AFC that made a deep run into the playoffs last year. They were an 11-win football team.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually. They're 11 wins, 6 losses. Very similar record to the Rams. They were 12-5.
Yeah.
Obviously, they won the Super Bowl, so they had a better season. But very comparable teams in terms of talent and ability, I think. So should be a very close game.
Yeah, and both teams, that kind of have great players at, all the marquee positions. I mean, you've got, obviously, the two quarterbacks are probably the thing everybody's going to be talking about first. You got Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford as the two quarterbacks. Then, you've got, it's going to be the first game where the Rams have Allen Robinson at wide receiver, and, their first game without OBJ and Robert Woods. They don't have him any longer. So we'll have to see what becomes of them. I know Cam Akers, their running backs, coming in a little bit banged up. So then on the defensive side of the ball, obviously the Rams possess maybe the best defensive player in football in Aaron Donald. And the Bills, answer that by, putting out newly acquired pass rusher Von Miller, who they got from the Broncos on the other side. So obviously both of those teams, extremely talented on both sides. It's going to be a hell of a game. From a division basis alone, I'm hoping that the Bills come away with the win. I think personally they will. I think, we're probably looking at, something like a 34-31 game. Hopefully Bills.
I would agree. It's going to be really close. I would hope the Bills win as well. I mean, taking down the Super Bowl champs, and especially for the Niners, given your division.
Right.
Nice it makes no difference for Washington. So, I'm always, if it's going to help the Niners, then absolutely.
But actually that is 100% not true, because Washington plays in the NFC, and the Bills are an AFC team. So the Bills getting the win, actually,
the Bills getting the win is helpful then, because
AFC,
right?
Because you don't have to play the only time we would go head to head with an AFC team was in the Super Bowl. I mean, you don't play AFC teams through the playoffs; you play other NFC teams. So, the Rams taking losses helps the Niners. It helps the
that's what I meant.
It helps
Rams.
Washington.
About the Rams.
Yeah. So expecting a game, probably to be around high 30s for both teams, or mid 30s. Now, one of those players that's going to be taking the field, player that caught 9 touchdowns for the Bills last year, was tight end Dawson Knox. Big news on him, as he just agreed to a 4-year, $53.6 million extension with the Bills. That just happened today. So they locked him up now for the next 4 seasons. And I mean, he really came out, and I think he caught around 52 passes, 54 passes his first 2 years in the league. And then last year he came out and he caught 60 passes and 9 touchdowns. So really just came out and put himself on the map last year. I remember last year I had Dawson Knox as a fantasy tight end, And until he broke his hand, he was catching a touchdown near every week. And then he came back after like 3 or 4 weeks and he started producing just like, he never even left. So great pickup. He would have been a tight end that I would have drafted again this season. But I did get Kittle. So that's who I went with.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of impossible not to go with Kittle.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him there, and I had good value on him, so I was like, I got to take him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guy's my favorite player, so I got to take him there.
It's hard not to be. He's just everything about him is great. Watching him play, his personality. Well, I think he's the people's tight end.
He is, yeah. I mean, the stuff that he did in Niners camp was insane. Like when he put on the sombrero and things like that. He is an absolute character. I mean, I'm really happy that he's on the team. And yeah, it was 49 catches for 587 yards and 9 touchdowns last year for Dawson Knox, and he played in 15 games. So wow, he only missed 2 games with a broken hand. Okay, that's pretty impressive. I think the bye was in there somewhere, but that's coming back from a hand injury. That's pretty quick. Yeah, especially seriously. When you're a tight end, you're always using your hands either to block or to catch the football.
I don't see. Wow, and he came back and still produced. It's like, damn, bro.
Yep, sure did. So Dawson Knox is going to be staying in Buffalo for the next 4 years, and I guess that kind of signaled some bad news for former Buccaneers tight end O.J. Howard, who was in camp with the Bills. He was expected to be their number 2 option behind Dawson Knox, kind of give them a 1-2 punch, but the Bills elected that they didn't need him. So, with final cutdowns, they did go ahead and release him. And he's now, he was a free agent. And O.J. Howard, former Buccaneers tight end, former Bills tight end, has now signed with the Houston Texans.
Well, that's going to be a change for him, but at least he got signed somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you go from, playing with Tom Brady and, going to camp with Josh Allen to...
It's like the Tyreek Hill situation. It's like, oh man, that's gonna be a bit of a change for you.
Go down to Houston and have Davis Mills be your quarterback. And Davis Mills actually did some pretty good things. It's just like that. Houston just overall sounds like just an unappealing situation.
It's like where players go to die or something. Like
plus he had that whole mishandling, I think, of the Deshaun Watson situation. It's like, how did Houston let him get in that? Like, how'd they let 26 allegations accumulate? Like, how did they as a franchise not know anything was going on? They're just like, it's fine.
And then you got the Browns who they're going to try and pick him up. Like, which organization?
Deshaun just really likes massages, man. We've noticed it. We've noticed that he's going to get a massage after every practice, but seems fine. No big deal.
I mean, I would assume it was a masseuse that worked with the team. That was maybe in the same facilities. So I don't know. It really wouldn't be that far-fetched. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, he could have got his own personal massages on the side, which is, I guess, likely since he likes massages so much.
I mean, there were 26 cases, so I mean, obviously there were multiple women. So I would guess maybe even some of each. Because
football players have masseuses within the team's facilities that give them sports massages for soreness. And so it's like a normal thing just for, within the facility of a football.
And there's nothing wrong with massages at all. We don't want to I mean, I love getting massages.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, usually, when I get to the end point of the massage, I'm not trying to pressure somebody into something. I was like, hey, guess what? Jesus. Yeah. So it is what it is, fucking Deshaun being Deshaun, man. We'll see him
week
12.
He's going to have it. Yeah, when he does get to play, it's going to be like in the preseason, it's going to be quite a unique experience to see how the fans and how people react.
I can't wait to see those videos.
And if he plays as badly as he did in the preseason,
it's going to get even worse. It's going to get even worse.
It wasn't a lot, but
because the way to shut those people up, the way to shut the hecklers up, is to come out and play well.
Because then they're going to be like, okay, well,
oh
fine,
shit, yeah. Like if you throw like if he would have come out and thrown a touchdown on those Jacksonville fans, they wouldn't have had shit to say. You come out and you go 1 of 5 for 7 yards. I mean, people going to talk some shit. Haters going to hate. And then, so we'll see if O.J. Howard can do something for the Texans. He's slotted to now be their starting tight end, as you would expect. He's definitely better than anybody that they currently possess on the roster. Buccaneers didn't need him because they have Cameron Brate, and last year they had the Gronk, who's since retired. We wish Gronkowski well in his retirement, and
I think he'll stay retired this time.
Yeah, Tom tried to get him back when Tom came back, and he didn't come back. So I think that he's done, because Gronkowski said before that he wouldn't play for another quarterback other than Tom Brady. So, I figure if Tom was trying to get him back for potentially his last season, he'd run it back for one more year. But I think he's done.
Yeah, same.
And deservingly so. I mean, he's he had a great career. Kudos to the Gronk.
Definitely.
And another released player, the Giants let go of linebacker Blake Martinez after 2 seasons, former Green Bay Packer. I know that, as I'm sure you've seen, a lot of Commanders fans are clamoring for the signing of Blake Martinez, as pretty much happens anytime a linebacker, even
I know, that's
walks,
why I'm kind of like,
even gets the sniff of free aagency. It's like, right. Maybe we should get this guy.
Why aren't we signing that guy? Come on! It's like, just chill out. Like, Jesus Christ! Yeah. If we're gonna get him, we're get him. If we don't, we don't. God, like, you don't even know if it'd be good. Like, just relax. But you are right. Anytime a linebacker comes available, that's the first thing they start saying. Like, we better sign him.
I get it. It's a position of need, and I think that mainly a lot of people just don't have a lot of faith in. I've seen him called the mullet. Mr. Cole Holcomb, but I mean, I think
I think
you sent me his numbers; they hold up.
Yeah, he's been pretty solid. Like, I don't know what the hate is within there. Like, he's grown as a player over the years too. I mean, he's a captain now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we'll put his numbers up next to Fred Warner's numbers, who was rated the number 47th player in the NFL's top 100, and they're real comparable in some ways. I think he had more sacks than Fred did, and I could see probably why the Commanders stayed away from Blake Martinez. I mean, in 2020 he was really good. He played 16 games, started all 16 games, and posted up 151 combined tackles. Last year, though, he was limited to 3 games and 23 total tackles. So he balled out in those 3 games he played in, but missed a lot of time. So. Obviously, and how old is he as well? He is 28, so he's still relatively young. But, I mean, obviously Ron choosing to roll with the guys that they have. And as of now, Blake Martinez is still a free agent and has not been signed anywhere.
And that's probably how it will stay, considering the season starts in a couple of days. Well, tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as the pads start hitting, injuries are going to happen. I imagine he'll probably get a call in the first week or 2 of the season, because he is a pretty good linebacker. I mean, he used to be a real good player for the Packers, and some with the Giants. It's just obviously he's had some injury problems, and staying healthy can be a real detriment in the NFL if you're unable to do that.
It is key.
Availability is the key ability. Absolutely. And speaking of health-related concerns, that kind of ties into this next thing. So, as we talked about before, Zach Wilson, quarterback for the New York Football Jets, is out with what did we say it was? It's a bone bruise and
a torn meniscus.
Torn meniscus, right? Okay. So he's out with a bone bruise and a torn meniscus. He had surgery on August the 16th. Expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks. He has been working out again with the team, but Robert Saleh, choosing to be optimistic, has announced that Zach Wilson will not start until at least week 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're choosing to be overly optimistic, and they're able to do so because they have confidence in their backup, which is 37-year-old Joe Flacco, 14-year NFL veteran. He'll be starting off week 1 against his former team of 11 years, the Baltimore Ravens. So that'll be really an interesting storyline.
Those coincidences when that happens are always great.
Yeah.
Like, But I think that's the right move for them. I mean, give him he's the future for them, so they really need to give him ample time to
Right.
heal entirely. Because I'd imagine the NFL, a lot of times they wait till like they're gonna wait just as long as they have to for you to say, I feel okay now, I'm good. When
Yeah.
another week or 2 or 3 really might be the better thing because you might re-aggravate that shit, and that happens a lot in the NFL. So they're making the right choice, I think.
Unrelated, but I almost wonder because obviously Salah's a second-year head coach, and Salah was on the team 2 seasons ago when Jimmy had the high ankle sprain and missed a few games. And remember, we had the option to bring him back at the end of the season, and Kyle elected to just shut him down for the year. I'm wondering if like Salah, because obviously you see other experiences when you're like a young assistant coach. I mean, I'm wondering if he saw how Kyle handled that, and probably how Kyle saw his dad handle the situation with Robert all those years ago, and was like, well, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to put Jimmy back in a game. That's really so. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's just Salah being, cognizant of that and being like, well,
It very well could be. I mean,
better with the health of your starting quarterback, better to be safe than sorry, for sure.
I definitely agree. I mean, if I was a coach in the NFL, I would be of that mindset. I'm not gonna, oh my God, you can come back this week. You know what? Let's just give it a week. Especially if you got a decent enough backup, maybe you'll win the game. No,
exactly.
Just wait.
Exactly.
Especially
and that's
a
what
young quarterback like that, where you're gonna need him for the years to come.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's what I was gonna say. And that's the advantage of a veteran or experienced backup, like Jimmy Garoppolo. Or, like in Carolina, like a Sam Darnold or like a Taylor Heineke or somebody that's been there and like done that and actually gotten game experience.
Yeah.
Because if you're going in there with like an unproven, rookie or
and
even like a second or third year guy.
As well, not just experience, but actually managed to win games and like, keep a team going. Like there's backups that have had experience and they're awful still and have, haven't won many games. And then you got ones that actually take the teams somewhere.
Mike Glennon comes to mind as far as terrible backups.
Mike Glennon, man, that neck he's got is something else.
It's an NFL record. At least he's got one record.
Yeah, at least he's got. Nick Mullins is another one that comes to mind.
Yeah. Nick Mullins now with the Minnesota Vikings. I guess we'll mention that.
Wait. They have Kirk Cousins and Nick Mullins now.
Yeah. So let's just touch on this real quick. So at Final Cutdowns, the Raiders. Because he was on the Raiders with Chase Garbers and why can't I think of his name? It's the Jarrett Stidham, former Patriot backup. So Stidham got the job under McDaniel, his former coach of the Patriots. So that made sense. He's most familiar with the system. Mullins got shipped off to the Vikings for a 7th round pick, and he is now the primary backup because they cut Kellen Mond and Sean Mannion. So if Kirk Cousins, I mean, Nick Mullins is one play away from being the Vikings starting quarterback.
Oh man!
In a division that has Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers, you're rolling with Nicky Mullins as your backup.
Well, San Francisco did the same thing in your division.
We did, but we all
know how that went, though.
We were really counting on Jimmy being healthy in those games. We're really counting on him being healthy. And honestly, we did also, for the record, have CJ Beathard in all those games, who was also the number 2 in Jacksonville.
And I think I remember us both saying, like, why don't they play CJ?
It always should have been CJ, because when
have been CJ.
That's a tongue twister. It always should have been CJ by the seashore with seashells. Yeah, but I know when they finally put fucking Beathard in, he actually won some games. We love the Beathard family. Bobby Beathard, former Redskin GM. Love the Beathard family.
Absolutely.
CJ. Be careful, CJ. It's from Borat.
Is that from something? Oh, okay. Is that from something?
Yeah, it's fucking dumb, dude. I never know what I'm going to do on this. Anyway, moving on. Zach Wilson. That's really all there is to say about that. They've got a more than capable backup. Flacco.
Yep.
He's been on the Jets roster the last 2 seasons too. Obviously, it's the same offense as last year. So going with a guy that can definitely get them some wins. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
We also have one other thing regarding another player's retirement. Emmanuel Sanders, after 12 seasons, has retired. He was last a member of the Denver Broncos, but also was on the 49ers for a while as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we got him in the 2019 season and had him for 10 games. He helped us on our run to the Super Bowl, which was awesome. Unfortunately, as well, he was involved in really a play that everybody still talks about. We're in the Super Bowl. Obviously, we had a chance to come back when we were still up at that point in the game, and Jimmy overthrew Emmanuel Sanders on a deep route, and that was one of the many opportunities that we had to put the Chiefs away, put the nail in the coffin, and we missed. But I mean, he was a real good player for us. I think most recently, I want to say he played for the Saints.
Broncos.
No, it was the.
Oh, you mean before that?
Yeah. So he played most recently with the Buffalo Bills last year. They had a real good season. He ended up catching 42 passes for 626 yards and 4 touchdowns. The year before, he was on a 1-year deal with the Saints, caught 61 passes for 726 yards and 5 touchdowns when he played with Drew Brees in his last year. And then the year before that, he was split between the Niners and the Broncos. He was traded mid-season, played the final 10 games with us, plus the playoffs, and then, signed with the Saints the following offseason when he wasn't retained. He did sign a 1-day contract with the Broncos, retiring as a member of the Broncos. Obviously, that's where he won a Super Bowl. He went to 2 Super Bowls with Denver, total of 3, 2 with Denver, 1 with us. He managed to win 1 of them. Super
I
Bowl
think he
50
also
champion.
played in the Super Bowl with the Steelers as well.
Oh, right. Okay. Then I think I fucked that.
When he was a rookie in his first season, after he was drafted.
Right.
He played in the Super Bowl.
I think I missed. I think he only played in 1 Super Bowl with the Broncos then, but it was 1 with the Broncos, 1 with the Steelers. So that's pretty cool. 3 Super Bowls with 3 different teams. But yeah, I mean, for his career, he ended up playing in 155 NFL games, catching 638 passes for 8,376 yards and 46 touchdowns. So definitely a very good career. I wouldn't say it's like a Hall of Fame career, but obviously a very good career nonetheless. And, he was a really good player, and it was fun to watch him for all these years. So enjoy retirement.
Definitely. I mean, after 12 seasons, I'd say, he deserves it. He had a good run. Multiple different teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can really ask for. I mean, I do miss the days when players got to stay with the same team a bunch, but that doesn't happen anymore. So when a player does go to a lot of different teams and still has success, it's always good to see.
Well, especially like in his last 2 years with the Saints and the Bills, he was kind of like a pass catching mercenary, signed on those like 1-year contracts. So, I mean, and there's a lot of players that do that. I mean, we've talked about that before. A lot of these guys live and die by the 1-year contract. Just like constant prove it deals, just recirculate with different teams. But sometimes that's the nature of the NFL, and then some guys never have to worry about that because they're constantly getting 5 or 6 year extensions. So they're always
it depends on the team that they're on. Some the team already has 1 or 2 real top receivers. One they're paying a lot more than the rest, and then the second one, it's easy for a guy that's still a good player to get off of the team because the core they already have is like the Niners with the running back room. If they cut one of their running backs, there's a good chance that player is going to get picked up somewhere else. They're probably pretty decent.
That actually happened. I mean, we cut Trey Sermon, last year's 3rd round pick because we had to cut somebody,
right?
And he got instantly picked up by the Eagles. They jumped all over that shit.
There you go.
They're like, Kyle let a running back go.
Well, we know he's good. Come on.
I was like, San Francisco runs for 200 yards a game. I was like, shit. Let's get him.
All right, so we have a new segment this week. It's just a bit of a for fun segment. We all enjoy memes, and these are kind of memes of sort. Mm-hmm. It was created by a Twitter user. What was his name again? Ghetto Gronk.
Gronk, yeah.
Right. So we have to give him credit before we, post these on, but they're hilarious and they need to be shared. to everyone that can see them. So
For sure. Absolutely.
we're going to start off with Aaron Rodgers, which we'll have all these up on the screen so you can see them as well.
Yep.
But so Aaron Rodgers' abilities still own you. Automatically lose to the 49ers in the playoffs, which is like this guy, like solid, man, solid. Rodgers.
He's been a Niners fan his whole life. I mean, like, so I saw somebody post that it's like that Aaron can't, like, he's too much of a Niner fan. He can't bring himself to beat the Niners. And I was like, man, if that's the case, then, you know, I love that guy.
Right. All
What's
right.
the next one?
Karen Rodgers, demand to speak to the general manager. I mean, that fits in pretty well as well.
No. Gutenkust, yeah, the GM there, Brian
Gutekunst.
Gutekunst, yeah, whatever
name.
The hell it is, yeah.
And then Thoreau Rogan, smoking DMT increases awareness and replenishes stamina. And then the quote at the bottom, yeah, we never trailed in regulation. Aaron Rodgers when asked if the Packers beat the 49ers in the 2021 playoffs. I did have, when I first saw this, I had like another idea with like the bottom one. Instead of what it says, this increases awareness, I was like, smokes DMT at halftime during the NFC Championship and proceeds to lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's real good, except in that NFC Championship game for whatever reason.
One game. What did you say? Is 1-5? Like he won.
Yeah, I want to say he's like 1-5. Like I don't know, because he's definitely won one Super Bowl. It might be 1-4. Let me verify. NFC title games. All right. Should be relatively easy. 1-4. So I made his record.
All right.
mean, if he makes it this year, it'll probably be 1-5. Sorry, Packers fans. But you know, you guys, you know, fucking, you know, I'm not lying.
They're riding that Aaron train though until he's gone. Once he's gone, that team is
as you should, because he's all you have.
Like, oh man, that's gotta be so scary for him. Like knowing once he's gone, it's like every time Jordan Love has ever touched the field, it's just been like depressing and just sad.
Although they say that they've got the best Packers team that they've had, you know, since they won the Super Bowl. But I feel like I've heard that said like 3 times before since they won that Super Bowl.
Don't think I believe that one, but okay.
I was like, well, we'll see. All right. Next one. We got currently a free agent, so he's not on the team, as you'll see from the picture. He's not, you know, he's just in his little rap gear there. Looks like he's about to drop the new album. Mr. Antonio Brown. Now,
I mean, he's going to have to if he wants to start bringing money some other way.
Got to make money somehow.
He's not going to be playing in the NFL.
Yeah. So we got put that shit on. Run off the field shirtless if you don't have 10 targets by halftime, which that seems appropriate. I mean, the man was trying to get his money last year, if you didn't hear, trying to up the incentive in his contract. You know, obviously Gronk got the incentive. We all heard about that famously at the end where Gronk got the money and Antonio Brown didn't. Tom made sure to feed his boy, which, I mean, Tom, if you're a team player, Tom's going to make sure you eat. Like, that just seems like the way it's going to be.
I really wish that was a real Madden ability. Like, even if just like for a joke. Like, if you don't target that receiver 10 times by halftime,
he's just gone. You lose him.
That would be the funniest thing. Like, I know it's fake, but
he's in the parking lot. He's in the parking lot. We don't know where he is.
Just make that like a little Easter egg in Madden. Yeah, you get like a camera that goes out to the parking lot and he's still waving his jersey around and shit. How funny would that be?
Yeah, like I love the picture of him like standing out in front of the stadium. Like he's like kind of just waiting for a ride.
Right.
Yeah. And then we got business is booming. Curse out your employer, then beg for your job back. Sounds about right. I mean, this guy's like constantly in the media about Tom Brady. He can't stop talking about Tom Brady. He was the one, like you asked last week, like who came out, and I ended up posting those tweets, the Antonio Brown tweets that he had about Tom Brady. So it was AB that, you know, caused Tom to respond about the 11-day absence. So even though the dude's not a member of the Buccaneers anymore, he just can't help but, you know, he's radioactive.
It was his last team. I guess I can see why he
I know, but he's not endearing himself to the 31 other teams, bud. Like,
nope.
That's the thing. I mean, nobody's gonna. And then incoherent. Tweet something nobody can. You know, this is relevant because that tweet, and I'll put the tweet up. it was pretty much like that. Like, you've got to basically decipher the shit, like, for what he said. Tweet something nobody can understand without a CTE translator.
That's like so bad, but like, God.
It's fucked up, but it's funny. Yeah, let me see. And oh yeah, I got these tweets right here. Let me pull them up just real quick. Tom Brady manipulate the game, gets 14 days, go home, gets his mind RT LOL, which I assume means right. And then he's calling out the Tom Brady personal trainer, Alex Guerrero. Alex Guerrero, you think I won't have you smacked by... Oh, okay, hold on. Let me start over. Alex Guerrero, you think I won't have you smacked at TB12? Boy, stop playing with me. Boy, getting paid by bucks and taking players' money, too. What the hell is he saying?
Forgiven. You're forgiven for how, like, I didn't realize how hard
that
was going to be.
Like...
Holy shit.
That's not real words.
God,
I mean, it is,
damn.
but it isn't. It's like
that's a struggle. Like,
your sentence structure's poor. Your sentence structure's poor as shit, Antonio.
God, that's worse than poor. God damn.
So I didn't have the CTE translator, obviously. And then we've got a quote here. Got a quote from Antonio. Obviously, this is a mock quote, but my greatest regret in my career is that I'll never be able to see myself play in a game live, which sounds like some stupid shit he'd say, to be honest.
It does. Oh, man. All right. Next, we got Deshaun Watson, which, should definitely be fun. So we got
unsavory as fuck.
Increased accuracy after getting a massage. I mean, you know what? It sounds legit to me. It's probably true. Like, even in real life. We got Predator get rewarded $230 million for sexually assaulting 26 women.
Oh God, no!
So we know he's a huge piece of shit.
Wow.
And then this is the best one: illegal touching, ineligible for games officiated by female referees.
Jesus. Oh my God.
And then I'm sorry, the quote's better. He's the reason the Browns can't have cheerleaders.
Who was that, like AFC scout or something? Like AFC coach?
AFC coach.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's great.
Oh man, Jesus. That's probably true. I don't know that the Browns do have cheerleaders. We haven't looked into it, but
I don't even care. That shit was hilarious.
If they don't, that's probably why. I mean, I don't know if female Brown fans are going to be able to attend the games this season. I mean, hide your kids, hide your wives, hide everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, listen to this. The Buffalo Bills, the Bears, the Browns, the Packers, the Chargers, the Giants, and the Steelers have no cheerleaders, is what this says. With a quick Google search. I was not aware of that, so. Oh,
wow. So, I mean, the Browns actually don't.
They just they didn't have cheerleaders.
They just didn't anyway. So. I mean, they almost knew. You know what it probably was? They had Ben Roethlisberger playing in the division for so many years. They probably just figured they might as well just
And the Steelers don't have cheerleaders either.
Well, why would you? Well, I mean, why?
No.
But if I was an alcoholic, would you leave beer out for me? Like, I don't think you'd do that. You're basically, I can't think of the word right now, but you're
enabling.
Enabling. There you go, boy. Goddamn enabler. Kane an enabler. That was not my best work, but all right. Now we got let me see. Oh, we have Mr. Zachary Wilson. My new up and coming young favorite quarterback. Not named Trey Lance, obviously. So Zachary Wilson has some great abilities here. Zachary Wilson has the ability called the MILF Hunter. Bang opposing quarterback's mom after the game. That's
after the game, it really wouldn't make a difference because it's after the game. It'd be more just like a fuck you to the other team, like regardless.
Yeah. So bang opposing quarterback's mom after the game. That's pretty good. Obviously, reason for that being the recent reports made by Abigail that we covered a couple weeks ago in one of our most popular clips. So thank you guys for that. Where she accused Zach Wilson of banging his mom's best friend. So yeah, Zach Wilson, the MILF Hunter. I've seen so many good memes out on this, about how Zach Wilson, Chad Ochocinco, remember Chad Ochocinco, former Bengals wide receiver. He came out with a tweet that said Zach Wilson is the GOAT. It's pretty good. Pretty good. And what's funny is I was about to say he's got some dog in him, and then it says dog in it. Beat the torn ACL allegations. Yeah, that's true. Because obviously, after the injury that we talked about earlier in the show, it was feared that he could have a torn ACL, but it was a much more minimal injury. It just ended up being a bone bruise and a torn meniscus. So Zach Wilson obviously able to avoid major injury because he got some fucking dog in him. And then he's the hot mom master. Know where to find all the hot moms in your local area. I don't even know how that works. Is that just like a radar that he would have?
I guess it's like Gaydar. I guess it's like the
it's just like he's got a little
compare it to maybe.
Yeah.
Or what it is? He's probably just banged them before, so that's how he knows. Sometimes he just goes out. They just gravitate to him, I don't know what it is, but
Zach Wilson does have that very prototypical, young, all-star quarterback. When I don't know, it's a good-looking young man. He gives young Jimmy G a run for his money as far as probably the better-looking QBs in the league. But, I wouldn't be surprised if he was banging out everybody's mom in the New York area. So, watch your moms, too. Watch your wives and daughters and massage therapists at Cleveland games. Watch your mothers at New York Jets games, please. We want to encourage women going to the NFL games, but please be careful. Okay. Then for the
there
quote.
was also the quote. Yeah, I was like, don't forget the quote.
Yeah, no, I won't forget the quote. This is from an AFC scout, obviously made up, but he almost fucked both his mom's best friend and the Jets season in 1 month. It's true though. Zach Wilson cannot be stopped.
Just gold, man. This guy,
which is true. You lose your starting quarterback, you're basically fucked.
Yeah.
All right.
One more. There's a couple more we'll have on the screen. We're not going to sit here and talk through all of them. You can see there's 4 or 5 others, I think. But the other one that was really funny to us was Kyler Murray. So we're going to cover that one real quick. Film study highlights first open wide receiver after watching at least 4 hours of film. Prestige. Skip practice to stay at home and play Xbox. And then this is kind of my favorite one. They're all good, but short and elite, better offensive line pass blocking because defenders can't see you behind them. and then
Tyler,
the quote,
of course, as we know, being 5'10" or 5'11", very
one of the shortest
quarterbacks
in the NFL, absolutely, maybe the shortest. And then you got Cliff Kingsbury's, unfortunately not real quote. It'd be great if it was.
I wish.
He better watch film or else I'm hiding his Xbox controller on the top shelf.
Coach. Oh my god.
That one, I love that.
That was
that
so
well
timed.
One. Oh, the notification.
Yeah.
For once, it was well timed.
Yeah. I wish that he would. I was just gonna say one more time to check out the guys. It was Twitter, you said, right? Yeah.
That made those. Be sure to check out that guy's Twitter to see more of those. He deserves.
Yeah, you guys can check out the rest of them on there. We'll post them up here. I did cover both of them, didn't I? AB and yeah. Okay. So cool. Yep. So yeah, that is. We'll just put the rest of them up on the screen for you. Won't get into those, and we'll move on to the next thing here. Okay. So another kind of relevant thing that's been coming up, maybe more insight into why Tom Brady took those 11 days off. There's been recent reports that Giselle may have left the Brady compound in Florida and, headed back to Puerto Rico. Apparently, there's feelings over her being resentful towards Brady's early return from retirement. He was retired for, what was it, 50 days? Wasn't very much at all. So yeah,
I would assume that's what it has to be related to. I mean, he's 45 years old. He's got older kids. I imagine she was really under the impression like he was gonna finally retire, and then he's going back. It's got to be causing some problems.
Yeah, I would think so. And I guess it's been reported before that like Gisele's always kind of felt like she's kind of like alone with the kids and stuff like that because he's spent so much time away from the family. Right. Of course, as you mentioned, they do have 3 kids. His son is 14. Then he's got 2 younger daughters. And let's see here. It says right here that she's resentful that Tom is still the football superstar. Obviously, an understandable situation, like you said. She was counting on him being home with the family. And Tom kind of just pulled a 180 and decided to come back and play another season after just
this
a
makes
little
me
over a
think
month.
that him deciding to come back because I remember I think in an earlier episode I thought, oh, maybe this was kind of planned, like he kind of knew what he was doing, and maybe he did, but
like maybe he discussed it with the family. It makes it seem like now he just had no idea.
Now it kind of seems like maybe he on his own kind of just changed his mind. He's like, oh well, maybe I'll do one more season. I feel like I can still do it. I mean, and she's probably like, hey, what the hell, man? Like, you said you were done, and now you're gonna go back. I mean, you're 45, like.
Yeah. I mean, this is just my perspective as a football fan, and I'm sure I'll get some flack for this in the comments, or maybe not. Who knows? But I mean, Giselle's Giselle. Giselle's awesome. Great. She's made a lot of money across the world. But I mean, Tom Brady's Tom Brady, and even though you've probably made more money than him, I mean, that man is the GOAT of football. I mean, if Tom Brady decides that he's going to come back for one more season, the greatest quarterback, arguably, that's ever played this game, then, you got to let that man run it back for one more season. I mean, like, we're getting a treat to see one more season of him. I thought I'd never see that man play football again. And I agree
back. As well. I mean, and it's not like he's out of town all the time. There's home and away games, and they all
Giselle,
live in
respectfully,
Tampa. So
let the man do what he wants.
Doesn't make sense. They all live in the same place. Home
those
games.
fucking kids, they're fine. Those kids are kids of fucking luxury. You think they miss their dad when they're living in that mansion, thinking of all the nice things that their dad's done for them? No. Like they're gonna, like, if I was Tom Brady's son, I'd be like, you know what, my dad, I fucking see him 8 days a year, but he's a fucking champion.
It's more. That. It's got to be like way more. Than
I know that.
I wonder how many days it actually is, but yeah, if
man's
I was
a fucking
I'd
seven-time Super Bowl champion. I was like, what's your fucking dad do, Ted? He works at the fucking bank. Fuck you. I was like, I take no shit. Like, you're not going to make Tom Brady's kids feel like shit. Like, could you imagine how high their self-esteem must be being Tom Brady and Giselle's kids? Those kids have probably never.
Well, or it could be the total opposite, because Tom Brady seems like unattainably perfect. So to be his child would be like the amount of pressure and like.
Could you imagine
that would be awful? What are you talking about? That would be.
Could you imagine if young Jack young Benjamin, I think his oldest son.
I don't know his kids' names.
Went out and Jack's his oldest. Okay, yeah. So I fucked it up earlier too. He's got 2 boys and 1 girl. So I wonder if one of them will end up making it into the league. Just when Tom finally retires, then you get his son in the league. Be hilarious. Belichick drafts him. Belichick drafts him. He's just like,
or his daughter grows up and becomes like the first like female head coach or some crazy shit.
Yeah, maybe. Could happen. Could absolutely happen. But yeah, I mean, obviously the key thing there is how's this going to affect the man's play? Obviously, anytime you go through any type of, obviously they're not broken up. It sounds more like it's just a split up. She just went to, take some time. I mean,
also this could just be she just went somewhere like for the time being, and there's really nothing wrong. I mean, you don't really know for sure.
Yeah. I read somewhere that they've had fights in the past and they've always like worked it out, so that's encouraging. But you certainly wouldn't want this to play, a factor on his mind. Obviously, like we've talked about the impact that the fans chanting at Deshaun could have. But obviously, football's a lot mental as well. So obviously, if you've got this going on in the background, although if there's one guy that can compartmentalize and on the field put because Tom Brady, when he's on the field, I don't think he's thinking about it at home. I think he's really zoned in there with his brothers.
I agree.
On the
I think
field.
he's focused on that at the moment.
Like he's like the one guy that like might be unflappable. Like dude's seen everything in his career.
That's a big part of being a professional football player. Is everyone has life. They do make a lot of money, so I imagine it makes some things easier. But still, everyone's got problems. Everyone's got bullshit. And what makes a great football player is one that obviously your talent and ability, but to go out there and shut down whatever's going on in your life that's messing you up inside and focus in that game and your team and get that game done. And regardless of what's going on with you personally, to sit there and put the team first and, put that game first.
I'll always remember just a side note here, a game where Brett Favre played a game where his dad had just died. And he was like literally his dad died in like a car accident, like right before the game. And, he wasn't sure if he was going to play. And, he decided at the last minute to go out and play for his dad, and it was like a super emotional game, and he was playing the Raiders. And dude, he had like a perfect game. Like he threw like, let me look up the numbers for this because like this is worth mentioning. Like his let's see. Okay, so this was 41-7 they beat the Raiders. On the night his dad passed away. He was okay, so it wasn't 6 touchdowns, but it was still pretty good. 22 of 30, 399 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Quarterback rating of 154.9.
That's an amazing game.
Your dad just died, and you just go out and you literally slaughter at the time Oakland.
Hey, this time it's right to say Oakland.
This time it's right. It's okay
to be right.
refer to him as exactly. So it's overcoming that adversity. I think Tom can do it. I hope we did see him play one series in the preseason. He looked good then. 6 out of 8, 44 yards. Got him a Ryan Suckup field goal. But we'll know more against the Cowboys Sunday night. I hope that obviously, if Giselle, if you and Tom can work it out before the Cowboys game, get on good terms again. Maybe fly the kids out to Tampa, fly them back in from Puerto Rico. Fuck Puerto Rico. I don't know why. It's beautiful there, but come on back to Tampa. Come on back to Tampa and try to get you another ring.
Yeah, right. Hopefully they don't, but
well, they're going to be in the running as they always are.
I know, but you know what I mean.
They always are. Yeah.
All right. I think we got one more thing to cover here. The free agents that are still available coming into week 1. Okay.
So let's just talk about this real quick. So obviously, as we mentioned earlier, the moment that the pads start hitting week 1, players are going to start going down with injuries. Right. Because obviously through camp, you do not get adequately prepared to get your, ass rocked through an entire game of football. So that being said, a lot of these guys are probably going to get picked up in the next couple weeks. Let's go through this list real quick. We have it up on the screen. We have Odell Beckham Jr., obviously coming off a torn ACL that he suffered in the Super Bowl. He's not quite ready yet. A lot of people are saying that, the Rams will probably sign him once he is fully healthy because there's been mutual interest on both sides. I certainly hope not. But, we'll see. He also could not be the same explosive player after coming back from a torn ACL. Odell's had, all kinds of different knee and, ankle injuries over the years. So he's been a pretty, he's been banged up. Absolutely. Yeah. You've got former Kansas City Chief, first overall pick, Eric Fisher, left tackle, who struggled last year with the Colts, had one of his worst seasons. But he remains an option if a team, is in need of offensive line help. I know that the Buccaneers have suffered a couple injuries, mainly at center. I think they lost their top 2 centers already through camp, and the season hasn't even started yet. So that's not awesome. So he remains available. You got Ndamukong Suh, formerly of the Buccaneers.
Wow, you got that name. You got that name real well, man. I looked up the name to have it ready and pronounce it, and you got that like almost. Yeah. I think you pretty much got it perfectly.
Yeah, and Ndamukong Suh's been in the NFL like for a long time, but I've been following his career real long.
I always have. Every time I see it, I'm like, God damn it, I gotta
I struggle with Robert Kimdichie, but yeah, I've got Ndamukong Suh. And then we've got Will Fuller, former Houston Texan receiver. He's also been somebody dealing with injuries. Slot receiving expert Cole Beasley, another wide receiver, also available. Kind of surprised Buffalo didn't bring him back.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's one on this list I'm kind of shocked about.
I mean, they got Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis, that young man that caught 4 touchdowns in that game last year, that really came on. And, so they've got other receivers, but I thought, you got to like his slot work. I mean, Cole Beasley's been doing it out of the slot for a long time for Dallas and then Buffalo. So, but he's out there. He's always somebody that could be pursued by a wide receiver needy team. Former Cleveland Brown and Pittsburgh Steeler corner Joe Hayden. Jason Pierre-Paul, another former Bucs defensive lineman. Might as well just cross Emmanuel Sanders off this list because we just reported he retired. So Emmanuel Sanders is now no longer a free agent. As we mentioned, he last played with Buffalo last year. T.Y. Hilton, former Colt. Kind of surprised that he's still available. I know that he's had injury issues as well, but T.Y. Hilton was a multiple-time 1,000-yard receiver. So kind of surprised that nobody's brought him in on at least like a minimum contract and at least like giving him a chance. But I'm sure, like I said, a lot of these guys, give it 3 or 4 weeks and you're going to see a lot of these guys getting calls like your Blake Martinez is, Landon Collins. Landon Collins is right here.
I was going to say, well, honestly, with Cam Curl's injury to his thumb, depending on how serious that is, I could see Commanders bringing Landon Collins back in. Maybe
if they could get him for the right price, I can absolutely see that.
I could, because they like. I know they want to stick with players that already kind of know the system and that they've worked with before. So, if given that, I don't think Cam Curl's going to play Week 1. I'm pretty sure I already had to have some kind of surgery on his thumb, but it looks optimistic. He will be playing soon, but it's not going to be Week 1.
Right. He's going to miss probably the first couple weeks, just like Chase Young. Just like Chase Young will.
Yeah, but let's hope that that's not too many weeks either. I forgot about that. But we'll talk more about that in the Commander segment.
Yeah, for sure. But let's see here. And there's Chris Harris on there, another cornerback, and
we got Sheldon Richardson, defensive tackle.
Okay, yeah, defensive tackle. Former
and
Cleveland
then Antonio Brown at the bottom there, which he's probably going to stay a free agent for the season, most likely, but who knows? Anything can happen. It seemed like the Browns might get stupid and decide to go sign him.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody gets real desperate, because that's the thing, Antonio Brown, he
is a decent receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the potential to help you out if you can, keep him out.
Keep his shirt on and,
the guy just gets in his own way.
Just target him 10 times before halftime and you'll be fine. And as long as he gets 10 targets before halftime, he's a good player for you.
Exactly. And that's literally what was happening in that game. Like, Tom just wasn't looking his way, and he just left. He just left mid-game in one of the most bizarre situations. I remember looking up at the screen and just seeing him removing his shit and just walking off the field. I was like, what in the fuck is happening here? I've never seen this happen in a game. And I've seen almost everything happen in an NFL game at some point. Never seen that happen. It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone's seen anything like that. Dude takes swinging his. Oh man, yeah. I'll never forget that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a huge Bruce Arians fan or supporter, but I mean that had to have been difficult for old BA to deal with.
I would imagine so.
What the fuck, dude? And BA, like, BA is a fiery guy. Like, on that sideline, I'm sure, like, it wasn't just, like, get off the sideline. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about fantasy football. If a lot of you are playing fantasy football like we are, I'm sure you have either done your fantasy draft already or probably have it coming up real soon with the season about to start. So, figured one thing we would do was a little segment here that was fun. Next week, I plan to do quarterbacks, but this week we're going to do running backs. In my opinion, the most important position, a position that I always personally address in the first round of the draft. I always personally try to get a running back that's going to give good opportunities and a lot of touches in both the out of the backfield and also receptions. So obviously, with that being said, there's a lot of running backs that really excel at that. I'm going to talk about 5 running backs that I would personally stay away from, and tell you why, and then 5 that I think that you should definitely select early on in your fantasy draft. Okay. You have anything to say, bud?
I guess not. I mean, I don't know what the 5 are yet. So.
Okay. Fair enough. No, we can just discuss them as we go here.
I'm also no fantasy master, so I mean, I'm fucking,
All good, bud. All good. Yeah, I mean, Nick, for the record, just started playing. Last year was his first year, so this is his second year.
Yeah,
So
but I will say, David has given me nothing but good advice in regards to fantasy. Like he definitely knows what he's talking about when it comes to picking fantasy.
I try to.
I would definitely say.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a strategy to it. I mean, it's part about like looking at the matchups, and we'll get into that more in coming weeks because I think that this will be a segment that people really like because everybody is playing fantasy now. So yeah, so let's get into it. 5 running backs to avoid in 2022. So at the top of my list, I'm going to put Zeke Elliott. With fantasy, I always play, totally unbiased. Like I will take
I like the pick,
Steeler. Yeah, I'll take a Pittsburgh Steeler. I'll take a Dallas Cowboy. I'll take, a Las Vegas Raider. I don't care who you play for as long as you're a productive player. But let me tell you why I'm not sold on Zeke. So last year, Zeke played on a torn PCL last year. So he still played. He's still relatively productive, but even then, he saw a career low in touches per game. So he saw on average 16.7 touches per game, and then that's down from about 3 touches from the previous season, and then 5 touches in seasons before that. So the Cowboys started to utilize
about him, some kind of a graphic where he's gotten progressively worse each year, basically.
Yeah, and he's right now he's making $12.5 million a season. So next to Derrick Henry, he's the second highest paid running back. So his production does not match the money. But Jerry Jones, obviously, he's been a long time player. He's been good for him. He's been really good for that franchise. Jerry wants to reward him, and Jerry, for nothing else, I talk a lot of shit about Jerry Jones, but the man is pretty loyal to his players for the most part if he likes you. Obviously Zeke does still have touchdown potential in explosive Dallas offense, but I don't know if that's enough to warrant an early round selection. Obviously, if you can get him later, go ahead and pick him up. But, if we're talking rounds 1 through 5, I don't touch Ezekiel Elliott. We've been seeing an increase in work for backup Tony Pollard. And, Tony Pollard saw his touches per game increase by 3 carries a game last season.
I was going to say, I remember the games that I watched last year. Tony Pollard looked pretty damn good from what I recall.
Yeah, so Tony Pollard seems like he's coming up. Zeke's on the decline. So
I remember being happy Zeke was out, but then being like, oh, what the fuck?
Tony Pollard's pretty good.
I was like, what the hell? This isn't what I expected.
Yeah. I know. It's rough. So next running back I would avoid, J.K. Dobbins for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously coming off an injury in which he missed all of last year. Now, obviously, I don't see Baltimore handing him the bulk of the carries. I'm real cautious to take any Baltimore running back personally.
That's what I was gonna say with Lamar.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick.
So you've got the Lamar thing, and even though they do run the football a lot, they employ a running back by committee type of backfield, where they'll give like every guy they've got like about 5 or 6. Yeah, exactly. So they're always like having a fresh back in there because they've used like Gus Edwards, they've used J.K. Dobbins, and then they went in the offseason. They picked up Mike Davis, former Niner, former Seattle Seahawk, Mike Davis. And then they also picked up, after the Raiders cut him, Kenyon Drake. So there's a lot of good backs there. And obviously Dobbins isn't fully healthy yet. He's questionable to play in week 1. If he does play, I look for him to be real limited. If I'm taking him, it's, if I can get him late. And that's, maybe holding on to him.
I wouldn't say at all. I think, like you're saying, it's like taking any Ravens running back is just really, in my opinion, if you're playing fantasy, you shouldn't take any Ravens running back.
Yeah, I would certainly recommend against it. Like, the one thing I was going to say with Dobbins that might give him some value is he is going to give you some receptions as well. He'll catch some passes as well as, but yeah, I mean, unless he's like a player where you flex in on a bye week, I would definitely stay away from J.K. Dobbins. Yeah. Or, as you confirmed as well, any of the Baltimore running backs, whether that be Mike Davis, Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, any of them, because I don't see any of them getting a whole lot of touches, because, that's just how John Harbaugh is. He just distributes. Third back that I would avoid, this one I think is pretty obvious for a lot of reasons, is Christian McCaffrey. Now, McCaffrey is a fucking beast when he's on the field, but the problem is, guy's hardly ever on the field. I mean, the last couple seasons, he's dealt with a lot of injuries, making his selection a real gamble, and that's not something I want to bank on. I mean, McCaffrey in a lot of leagues is going to be like one of the top 3 or 4 backs taken, because Carolina does run about probably 40-45% of their offense through that man, but between catches and
that's why he's always injured.
Probably doesn't help when you're getting that beat up. But Carolina's offense definitely does run through this man. But yeah, like I said, he's been out of the lineup quite a bit. So at this point, he's been a liability, and I just can't count on him to play and field a full 17-game season. So
yeah, I would agree. That's good advice.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're going around to like, let's say you get into rounds 6 through 10, and you've got like 2 good running backs already, and McCaffrey's still somehow out there, then maybe take him, because you've already got.
That's not going to happen though. Someone's going to see the name.
Right.
I was going to say earlier, like a big rookie mistake is picking players that you like, or like your team specifically, and trying. Right. Oh, it's my team. Like I did that shit last year, and that team was like dead last.
Yeah, you end up with the whole team on a bye the same week, and that's terrible.
I mean, I had players to sub in that week, but like it still didn't really matter. Like,
usually they're not your best players, though.
No, they weren't. They were bad, and I was already bad to begin with. But yeah, that's one thing I can say from experience. It's like, just don't. It's got to be based on nothing, no allegiances with fantasy.
Yeah, I have no allegiance to my team. Like, yeah, I mean, for the second straight year, I drafted Tom Brady as my fantasy quarterback. I mean, I'm a big Brady fan, but it's just like, obviously.
But like, you're not going to go out of your way to draft.
I didn't get Trey Lance.
San
like
Francisco.
Trey Lance was there.
You got George Kittle, because George Kittle's worth taking, regardless of if you like the Niners or not. But it works out great for you because you can take. I also did take team.
Robbie Maddock as my kicker. So
well, if he was still available, then I can't blame you for that. I was thinking about taking him too when I got on there, and I was like, nah, we'll. But
I didn't go out of my way to take Niners just for the sake of taking Niners. If I could get the best player available, that's what
exactly.
I did. All right, so Chase Edmonds for the Dolphins. So here's the thing with Chase Edmonds. So Chase Edmonds is another guy that's in a crowded backfield. Now, Miami recently let go of Sony Michel, obviously, and he has since signed with the Chargers. I guess we should have mentioned that earlier. He signed with the Chargers, so they have him now behind Austin Eckler. give them some additional depth. But Chase Edmonds is in a crowded running back room with, most notably, Raheem Mostert, former Niner All-Star, star of the NFC Championship game where he just
Raheem the Dream.
Raheem the Dream, Raheem the goddamn Dream. Also, Myles Gaskin is back there, and Salvon Ahmed. So there's 4 guys that you're planning on getting touches. Chase Edmonds might be the featured guy getting the majority of those touches, but I don't think it's going to be a lot more. And obviously, Mike McDaniel has, being the former Niners offensive coordinator, has great familiarity in Raheem. So if Raheem gets hot, I could see Raheem taking the bulk of the carries easily. Plus, I think Raheem's going into the season as kind of more the backup and, getting paid what he is because, he played in one game last year. He got injured in the opener and then that was it for him. So pretty, he's on a prove it deal right now. Definitely needs to, show that he can still play at a high level. But I definitely wouldn't bank on Chase Edmonds based on that. Chase Edmonds is also the guy making the most money in that backfield, but, often that is not a determining factor. Coach is going to play whoever has the hot hand and whoever is producing. But I personally would stay away from Chase Edmonds early in your fantasy draft. And same trend here. With the crowded running back room, I mean, that is definitely always something to note. You've got to look at that. You got to look at, rosters that are going to employ that more of a back by committee type of thing, because obviously the running backs that are going to get 25, 30 carries a game are going to be your Jonathan Taylors, your Derrick Henrys. And obviously if you can get those guys, go ahead and get them. I'm not going to include those guys in the top 5 because that would be too easy. I'm going with a little bit more, I don't want to say sleepers because they're all good players, but we'll get into that here in a second. But let's just finish with number 5 on the list of players I would stay away from early in your draft is Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Kansas City Chiefs. Reason for that being the Chiefs went out and made some additions to their running back room. In addition to having Jarrett McKinnon, it actually is Jarrett McKinnon this time. Didn't, misspeak for J.D. McKissick. So they do have Jarrett, our former player, former Viking as well. They went out and got Ronald Jones, who was, in the backfield with Leonard Fournette in Tampa Bay, who's a good player. And they drafted Isaiah Pacheco. So they've got 4 running backs on the active roster, and they really like Pacheco. Pacheco really impressed Andy Reid in the preseason, and I think that that's going to directly take carries away from what Helaire would be getting. Not to mention Helaire didn't produce as well as he did. He was a little bit banged up, as you tend to be at running back in the NFL pretty much all the time.
Yeah, right. Well, that's why most of these teams like to do that running back by committee thing.
It's not a bad strategy.
It's going to keep them all relatively, hopefully, healthy and fresh. Where when you have one guy like Derrick Henry, which those, or a guy like AP used to be, those kind of guys that are just monsters that just keep.
Yeah, I think they call that a bell cow.
It's that's rare. To find a guy that can play that much and to take that level of beating, it's just
That's what Kyle was trying to turn Deebo Samuel into.
Yeah, and Debo's nah. I don't want to do that, bro. That's not my job. I want to play more than 3 seasons and have to retire with CTE and who knows? That's just a lot.
Absolutely.
Probably too much. I mean, hopefully players don't get CTE that easily, but Jesus.
Yeah, I would hope not. Hopefully that's not a serious thing. I mean, it is a serious, but hopefully it's not easily acquired.
I mean, they've done things for the helmets and various things too.
Yeah,
I imagine.
NFL's always developing new.
Reduce those things.
Yeah, good for the NFL. It takes all of us. The NFL. All right. So now on the flip side of this is the 5 running backs that you absolutely should take early on. These are, call them sleepers, call them whatever the hell you want. I don't really think they're sleepers because, I mean, maybe some of these might surprise you, but let's go ahead and get into them here. So, okay, number 1, Najee Harris. Now, I made a very good run in fantasy football last year on riding the coattails of young Najee Harris. Yes, I did. I ended up going on like a 7-game winning streak at the end of the season off young Najee's back. Now, Najee Harris is whether you're personally a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers or not, which I personally am not, but that's fine. A lot of people are. Najee Harris is phenomenal. Now, as a rookie, they gave this man 307 carries of the football for 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. He also caught 74 passes for 467 yards and 3 touchdowns. So 10 total touchdowns, total of over 1,600 yards. Phenomenal season. And I don't really look for any of that to change because the depth that they have behind him is they've got Anthony McFarland, they've got Benny Snell, and really not much. So the Steelers running back depth behind
I've literally
Najee
never
Harris,
heard of either of those two.
Exactly. And that's why Najee will continue to get, probably close to 400 carries again this season. So if you can get him early, go ahead and scoop up Najee Harris like I did last year. I didn't get him this year. Now, this next guy, I actually drafted myself in fantasy. I was able to get him early on. Is Joe Mixon for the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Joe Mixon coming off a deep run into the Super Bowl last year. Ended up having a phenomenal season for the Bengals. He's another one of those backs that I really like that gives you the ability to not only produce on the ground, but also, line up as a receiver and catch passes in the flat or out of the backfield. Last year, Mixon had his best season ever when he started 16 of 17 games, carried the football 292 times for 1,205 yards, had 13 rushing touchdowns. And then he also had, 42 catches, 314 yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. So a total of 16 touchdowns. So he went off last year. I'm hoping that, more of the same happens this year. Obviously, if that's the case, I'm going to have a great year in fantasy football. But I really like Joe Mixon, and he seemed to get better as the season went on. Like, as we're getting later into, October, November, December, we started having more 100-yard games, and he was really, that whole Bengals offense, towards the end of the season, I'm sure you remember, really got rolling. They beat the Chiefs
they really
in
did.
the regular season.
It was surprising how good that they were playing. Never seen the Bengals look that good.
Yeah, Joe Beasy, Joe Burrow, he's he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league right now. So definitely got him feeding the rock to Joe Mixon. So if you can pick up Joe Mixon, go ahead and get him. Next guy I have is San Diego's Los Angeles. It's hard to break that. The Los Angeles Chargers, Austin Eckler. But so Eckler, obviously, I'm sure this isn't going to surprise anybody. He's been, one of the top running backs as far as the ability to catch passes for the last several seasons. He ended up having 70 catches last year for 647 yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. And then, not to be outdone, on the ground, he had 911 yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. So a total of 20 touchdowns. His yards were a little bit lower. He's more around 1,500 yards and about the 16 or 17 that Mixon and Najee had. But still, obviously touchdowns are going to be the ultimate value in fantasy. Yards help you too, but touchdowns are what you ultimately want, that touchdown. And, fifth guy, this is probably the one kind of dark horse guy on the list, is he was recently named the starter for the Houston Texans, Dameon Pierce. So he's a rookie. He was originally came in listed as third on the Texans depth chart, but he's now made his way all the way up to the starting role. Obviously, the Texans last year had the league's worst running attack. They ranked 32nd in the league. Only 1,422 yards total, which a lot of the running backs that we mentioned had more than that, just themselves. Texans averaged 3.4 yards per rush and only had 8 rushing touchdowns. But they had running backs like Rex Burkhead, and I can't think of who else they had at the time, but it wasn't good options. Nobody that's really going to wow you or be a household name. So he is pretty much expected. Like, they've got Rex Burkhead and Marlon Mack on the roster. He's far and away the best player that they have. I expect them to feed him early on. So obviously kind of a sleeper dark horse player. I don't think he's going to be taken early in a lot of leagues. So if you can, definitely, go ahead and draft Dameon Pierce early on. I think he'll be a real good player, and I think you'll be happy with his production. Obviously, the Texans are a team that, outside of Brandon Cooks, their receiver, they don't have a lot of offensive weapons. So ball's got to go somewhere. And usually when your team's not offensively good, you run the football a lot. So pick them up if you can. But yeah, join us next week. We will do quarterbacks, 5 quarterbacks that you want to pick up and 5 quarterbacks that you definitely want to stay away from. At that point, we'll probably have a game in the book. So we'll go over that too. But yeah, join us next week. Hope you guys like this fantasy segment.
What's up, Commanders fans? Welcome to this week's Commanders Countdown. Not much news other than that the first game is in a few days, finally. Our first game is on September 11th, this upcoming Sunday. There is a game tomorrow, obviously, but our first game will be Sunday. Looking forward to that. The final 53-man roster has been released, and we have that up here on the screen. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as far as who made it, let's just talk about a couple surprises here. Obviously, the decision to carry 3 quarterbacks, not, particularly surprising. Obviously, Heineke, Wentz, and Howell all getting on the team, and the active roster didn't want to chance losing a guy on the practice squad. Running back, this was the more interesting one. They did keep 4 backs. Obviously, Brian Robinson Jr., who's now, going to probably miss, which that's an update. He's been seen on crutches already, making,
I forgot about that.
Miraculous headway, and expected to only miss about 4 weeks. So he won't be out of the lineup long. But obviously, that's going to cause them to elevate Jarrett Patterson, who initially got cut.
Is he on the practice squad, or did he get cut?
He initially got cut. He got brought back to the practice squad. And then what ended up happening is, what happened to Brian Robinson, where he got, unfortunately shot, happened, and then he got elevated off the practice squad. So the running backs that they'll have are going to be McKissick, Gibson, Jonathan Williams, and Jarrett Patterson. So obviously with it expected to be Gibson taking the majority of those carries again, and McKissick being used more in the pass catching situations. At receiver,
that move though to drop Patterson, just wanted to say quickly, I kind of expected that he would be taking over Jonathan Williams. I think I maybe said that on a previous show.
Yeah, we did. We definitely thought that he would make it over Williams, especially because Jonathan Williams has been. I think he went to camp last year with the team and didn't make it. He was a practice squad player, so obviously he showed something different this offseason and made the final roster. So congratulations to him. But good that they didn't lose Jarrett Patterson either, because, obviously he's a lifelong Washington fan. So really, really a good story having him on the team. So 6 receivers is what they kept. Obviously, you knew they were going to keep at least, you knew Terry, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson, the first round rookie pick, weren't going anywhere. But it's like, who are going to be the final, 2 or 3 that they kept? Well, they kept Dax Milne, who had a pretty good preseason. They kept Cam Sims, who's been sticking around for a couple seasons. He had a really impressive touchdown catch from Taylor Heineke in the preseason. And they kept, let's see, who's the other one?
Somewhat of a not but he hasn't really lived up to his hype.
Yeah. I was seeing a lot of people upset about that because they were thinking that, the regime is just determined to keep a draft pick just for the sake of doing it. A lot of people thought that, maybe Alex Erickson, who you guys got from Cincinnati, could have filled that spot, or, there were other players that it looks good in the preseason. But also, Sony Michel's brother, Mark and Michel, he also looked pretty good. He was another guy that was in the running. But yeah, that's who they picked up. At tight end, they ended up keeping 5, which usually you keep 3 or 4. Ron going tight end heavy. And this could change. This could always change before. A lot of times these are getting flexed, and, it could change based on a matchup. Logan Thomas, obviously, John Bates, Cole Turner, Armani Rogers, and Curtis Hodges are the 2 surprises, 2 rookies. Then along the offensive line, you've got your Trey Turner, Andrew Norwell, Wes Schweitzer, Charles Leno Jr., Chase Roulier, Chris Paul, not from the NBA, Sam Cosme, Sadiq Charles, who had a really rough camp in preseason, made the roster. A lot of people thought Sadiq might not make it, but Sadiq didn't make the roster, and Cornelius Lucas, who recently had a baby. Congratulations to him. Well, he didn't, his wife didn't, but, they had a baby.
We think we get it.
Yeah. Let's see here. On the defensive side of the ball, they kept, and keep in mind that this is, not gonna, conspicuous by his absence is Chase Young. Obviously, he's gonna be on the PUP list and miss the first 4 games of the season. Everybody, knows that. Also, another thing, there were rumors coming out about Chase potentially. I think we should address this real quick about him re-aggravating, the injury.
Came from all of a sudden that just was popping up again. It's like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, so
I think
Chase
this
wasn't
in
even
June or something. Somebody posted something in June about it, and then this thing about being at the Von Miller's camp, which he wasn't even at.
Yeah, he wasn't even at Von Miller's camp. The only Washington player that went to that was Deron Payne, and Deron Payne did not get injured. So, false news, did not happen. Happy to report, because I saw that and I was like, oh no. But yeah, happy to report that that's bullshit. But yeah, so you'll see on the defensive line, no Chase Young. They do plan on giving snaps in his spot. It's going to be James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill, 2 guys that were on the team last year, getting snaps in his place until he gets back. Obviously, your other defensive end is Mr. Montez Sweat. They also have Shaka Toney and Effie Obata at the defensive end. And then at the defensive tackle, Daniel Weiss, who had a badass preseason. Really happy to see he got on the team.
Glad that he's there, with Jonathan Allen and Ron Payne. Yeah. And then depending on Fedarian Mathis looked pretty good as well in preseason.
Fedarian looked pretty good. Yeah. Absolutely.
With that entire defensive tackle set there.
Yep. And then at linebacker, probably the most controversial position on the team, according to a lot of Washington fans, because a lot of people aren't happy with the current state of that. But yeah, let's and actually there's one addition that I have to make to this, because I don't know if you heard about this, but John Bostic was re-signed. So John Bostic is back with the team, former Washington player. So they have him at linebacker. He's not listed here on the list. They also have Milo Eifler, Jamin Davis, obviously, last year's first round pick, and Cole Holcomb, obviously. David Mayo. Am I not
seeing the whole list?
That one must have cut it off. Okay, so
some names missing here. Okay, it's fine. We're good.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get the expanded, the whole list off there. It's just it cut it off on the screenshot, but yeah, I've got the whole list here, bud. So don't worry about that. But yeah, so Cole Holcomb, David Mayo, Jamin Davis, John Bostic, Milo Eifler, Dejon Harris, who you'll see on the list, was cut, and John Bostic took his place. So that is one mistake to report on this list. This list is when they initially reported the 53-man roster. Then at cornerback, this is a surprising move. I'll have to look to see if they've addressed it since. Let's see. It's still showing just 4. Okay. So they kept 4 corners, which teams usually keep a minimum of 5 corners, sometimes 6. They kept starters Kendall Fuller and William Jackson III, and expected nickel corner Benjamin St. Juste. They also had Christian Holmes on the roster, who looks like he's been replaced by former 49er. You guys picked him up when we cut him, one of our 7th round picks, Tariq Castro Fields. So he was a guy that was in camp with us until recently, and now he's over with you guys. But yeah, as of right now, you guys only have 4 corners, which is kind of surprising, because usually teams carry 5. If a team comes out in like a 5 receiver set, I guess if that happens, they'll just slide a safety over there or something.
Safeties, I mean, if they have to, if it's a deep set like that, obviously they can just slide one of them over, like you said.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I thought that's what you said. I just wanted to confirm. Okay, and then they've got at safety, and so they kept 4 corners, but they kept 5 safeties. So I guess they've got some versatility at the position. So obviously, Cam Curl, who we know is going to miss the first couple, at least the first game with the thumb injury, might miss some more time beyond that. They have Derek Forrest, Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, and Bobby McCain at safety as well. And then for the last 3 guys on the roster, the special teams unit, Tress Way, Joey Sly, and long snapper Cameron Cheeseman. No surprises there. Obviously, same set returning from last year.
The long snapper we had forever. But it seems like it's going decently with the Cheeseman. So
the Cheeseman, he's been decent so far. Yeah, no issues to report, luckily. So there's that. Also, in other news, Ryan Kerrigan, but he was hired as assistant defensive line coach. So he's going to be assisting defensive line coach Jeff Scanina in his day-to-day operations and helping with the defensive line. So obviously, good to see Kerrigan back with the team after he spent that year away with the Eagles.
I watched one press conference with him talking to the media after the practices and what it's like being coach, and I'm really happy about it. It seems like he's going to fit in well there. Being a veteran player and it seems like he's got the right mentality for it. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be a good thing for the team.
He knows all these guys like John Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young. A couple years ago, he was sharing a locker room with these guys, so he's got really good camaraderie with them, and they really respect him a lot. It's a good move. I mean, and he's clearly a great player. I think as long as he can get into that, because coaching and playing is a very different thing. But based on the press conference I watched, it sounds like he sees that and he understands. He's like, it's surprising the different mindset it puts me in being in coaching rather than just playing in my position alone and where I am. I think it's gonna. You never know, but I hope it's gonna work out well. I'm optimistic about it. It's always nice to see a longtime player come back to the organization. Yeah, and great players don't always make great coaches. The case that always comes to mind is Wayne Gretzky. Greatest hockey player of all time, but he was a terrible coach. Sometimes you do get it, but you just have to. I guess it's just changing that mindset, and but he's got experiences that he can share, from doing it so long in the league. And
one other quick little note, I guess. I've seen this post as well about that FedEx Field has the most expensive beer in the NFL. Now there's a caveat to this if you don't pay attention enough. It's a 25-ounce beer. So you're getting more beer.
I
think it's like $14 for the beer. And like for example, like the Ravens Stadium, as far as I know, only sells like 12-ounce cans, and they're like $7 or $6 or something. So it's like almost the same price. But if you look at it,
ass Baltimore. Jesus.
But I imagine the beers are they're still obviously
they're selling OE 40s at the snack bar. Like, here you go.
Oh man.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to know. So, because I saw that and I was like, oh no, because we had the segment about all the Anheuser-Busch pulling out. So we were wondering what was going to happen with the beer. So good to know that at least.
Think about it. I'm like, oh, you get a bigger beer, but like I live somewhere warm, as do you. In Florida, Arizona. It's like, well, it's always hot. I'm like, I don't want a 25-ounce beer. It's just gonna be hot halfway through. But I'm thinking of the game I went to in DC in November. I'm like, oh, it was like 50 degrees outside, so it'd actually probably be fine. But yeah, just a little random thing I'm sure people have seen around online. If you didn't know, like, there are different sizes to the beers. That is kind of the difference in the price. But yeah.
If you don't know, now you know, because I didn't know. So I wasn't aware. And I guess the last thing we have really is, other than and I'll just mention this, that 53, those 53 guys we mentioned, that's the, 53 initial Washington Commanders. So pretty significant there, on the first ever Commanders team. Now there were 8 captains named. That also broke today. 2 returning from last year. Those being Terry McLaurin and John Allen. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with either of those. In addition, quarterback Carson Wentz, left tackle Charles Leno, tight end Logan Thomas, Cole Holcomb, Kendall Fuller, and punter Tress Way were also named captains. Like I said, in addition
Logan
to
Thomas, Tress Way, and Cole Holcomb last year also captains?
No,
they were
really not. The only ones that returned as captains from last year were John Allen and Terry McLaurin.
All right. I don't know why I thought that then. Well,
yeah.
All right.
Chase Young was one last year, and he's not obviously this year.
Yeah.
So
well, Charles Leno definitely wasn't.
Yeah, Charles Leno is.
So all right. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So and then Chase Young though is an alternate captain. Obviously, if one of those players gets injured and doesn't travel with the team anymore, there were 3 alternate captains named. One was Chase Young, one was safety Jeremy Reeves, and the other one was running back J.D. McKissick. So obviously those guys could step in and be alternate captains if they need to be. But that was who was voted on by the team. And anything else that you wanted to cover this week, bud?
Forward to that first game on Sunday.
Yeah, against the Jaguars. So be interesting to see. They're going to be rolling out there with maybe no James Robinson at running back, which would help you guys out. It might just be Travis Etienne. Too.
Team out too, because he's one of my running backs.
Yeah. Well, ETN, hopefully he has a decent game, but not too good of a game.
But yeah, exactly. They still lose, but
it's like you want him to have like 73 yards, but like not get in the end zone. It's like, I just need you to produce. Yeah. All right. Well, join us next week. We will be recapping game 1 against the Jaguars, which hopefully is a win. It should be a win. I mean, you can never take a game for granted in the NFL, but join us next week, everybody, and like and subscribe if you haven't already. We've been growing a lot. We really appreciate you. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this week on the Niners News Update. Hope you all had a great week. Thank you all for tuning in this week. If you're not already, make sure that you like and subscribe. This week's episode is going to be a pretty quick one. We just want to go over the 53-man roster going into this Sunday's opening game against the Chicago Bears. So we'll just get into that real quick and also talk about the Niners captains were also named. So we'll mention that as well. So let me just go ahead and get into that. Okay. So
game.
as far, what's that?
We get to cover an actual game again too.
Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Obviously, having the Bears week 1. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I feel pretty good about them as an opponent. Obviously, they're a team that we've played a couple times in the last few seasons. They haven't traditionally had a lot of offensive firepower. They do have, Justin Fields now going into his second year, which that's one thing I'll bring up real quick. Justin Fields, and I've got it saved here. I'll put it up on the screen. Justin Fields said going into, media this week against the Niners that he plans on making the Niners pay for passing on him and drafting Trey Lance. Of course, Aaron Rodgers famously said that as well against us, and hasn't worked out too well for Aaron.
It worked out for Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, and Aaron's a lot better quarterback than Justin Fields. I mean, respect to what Justin Fields may become one day. I mean, and I think he will be pretty good, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and I mean, that man can't beat us a lot of the time, so what are you going to do? I mean, anyway. But it remains to be seen. He's going to be on the field with Nick Bosa this Sunday, so good luck to you, young man. So let's get into the roster. As we discussed last week, quarterback. We end up keeping in really an unprecedented Kyle Shanahan move. I don't think it's ever been done unless we've had an injury before, but we've never been a team to go in under Kyle with 3 quarterbacks on the roster. We've always had like Jimmy or like Jimmy and Mullins or Jimmy and CJ, and then like one like Mullins on the practice squad or CJ on the practice squad. You know, like 2 of those guys have been on the active roster. The Niners elected to keep 3 quarterbacks on the active roster. Trey Lance, obviously the starter. Jimmy, kind of the surprising move we talked about last week as the backup. And then number 3 going to Brock Purdy over Nate Sudfeld, which was, kind of seen as a surprise move. But Kyle really liked what he saw out of the deemed Mr. Irrelevant. He was very not irrelevant in the preseason and impressed and got on the roster. So he's Kyle didn't want to put him on the practice squad and risk losing him. So 3 quarterbacks on the active roster. Running back, we're going with.
It is. So Brock Purdy has a little bit. He might have more of a ceiling than Nate Sudfeld. So.
Yeah. I mean, he's and I know Kyle really liked Nate Sudfeld too. He was really well regarded, and I feel like we gave Nate Sudfeld like a guaranteed like $3 million for coming over. He's since been cut. He was picked up by the Lions, so he's now Jared Goff's backup, playing under Motor City Dan Campbell. So, wish you well, Nate Sudfeld. Thanks for what you did for us here in a few months when you were here. Actually, no, he was here for us last season as well. So appreciate you. But let's go on to the next group. Running backs. So at running back, this was kind of one of the ones we talked about who they were going to keep. It was a deep group. Obviously, we knew Elijah Mitchell was going to be on that roster. We knew Jeff Mitchell Jr. was going to be on that roster. We knew those 2 were good. I told you that I thought JaMychal Hasty was like a lock on the roster. They ended up cutting JaMychal Hasty. Now, he was brought back onto the practice squad, which I was really happy to see because I'm a big JaMychal Hasty fan. But what's most notable here is undrafted free agent Jordan Mason, who had he had an unbelievable preseason. He had like 18 carries, 87 yards. He probably, of all of our running backs, had the best looking preseason. So Jordan Mason, undrafted free agent, makes the roster as the 3rd running back behind Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell. Also, Tyrion Davis Price, our 3rd round pick for this year, made the roster. And that's the 4 of them. And then Kyle Juszczyk is the fullback. That would make 5 backs. Like I said, JaMychal Hasty is still on the practice squad. We cut Trey Sermon, last year's 3rd round pick because we had to cut somebody.
Right.
And he got instantly picked up by the Eagles. Like they jumped all over that shit.
There you go.
Yeah, they're like, Kyle let a running back go.
Like, well, we know he's good. Come on. Like,
yeah. It was like San Francisco runs for like 200 yards a game. I was like, shit. Let's get him.
Dropped him down in the practice squad like that. Every time I've seen him play, I feel like it's been pretty positive. So
yeah, and he's been our best receiving back. That I've said that numerous times. So what is interesting about that is I'm wondering if Kyle's seen something, and it must have been in camp because we weren't seeing a lot of true game stuff in the preseason games. But I'm wondering if Kyle's seen enough out of one of these other guys, whether it be Tyrion Davis Price or Jordan Mason or maybe even Jeff Wilson, that can come in and fill that, receive, because every team's doing that receiving back thing now. It seems like every team picks up that third down back that, has that pass catching ability. You've got to have that guy. It's a situational thing.
Not to have that. Yeah, exactly. To have you need to have every option open.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's good to, when you're on a 3rd and 17, just have a good running back, a shifty guy that you can dump it to and, maybe have him pick up something behind the line of scrimmage and get you a first down for like 23 yards or something. That's definitely a good niche to have. At tight end, we talked about Tyler Kroft getting picked up, the big free agent coming over from Buffalo and former Bengal. We thought that he could potentially form a dynamic 2 tight end set with let me adjust here, with George Kittle. But obviously that was not to be. He was cut. Troy Fumagalli was also cut at tight end. Jordan Matthews, who was a former wide receiver that was in camp as a tight end for us, he ended up retiring from football in the midst of camp. It was kind of weird. You guys had that happen with Antonio Gandy Golden. So our 2 teams, we had a receiver that converted to tight end, and both of them retired. AGG went back to school, and Jordan Matthews retired.
Nah, I think I'm just done.
Yeah, I guess it's different when you got a block on that line. I'm sure Kyle, if you've got George Kittle blocking and he kind of sets the standard, I'm sure that's also kind of expected of any of the backup tight ends as well. But the 2 backup tight ends that we did keep, we kept 3 tight ends total. Guys that we've had the last couple seasons, Ross Dwelly and Charlie Warner. So no surprises there. Just going with our traditional group. Wide receiver, we end up going with Debo, who, nobody's shocked there. Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod, Danny Gray, and that is it. So Debo, Ayuk, Ray, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, and Juwan Jennings are going to be the wide receivers. Really, no big surprises there. They did end up putting Willie Snead, who we talked about, veteran receiver Willie Snead, on the practice squad.
Surprising?
Yeah. I mean, Willie Snead's been a starter for the Saints in years past, and Baltimore as well. But, I mean, obviously, Kyle asks a lot of these wide receivers that we have. They got to be able to produce as a receiver, and they've got to be able to block. So, I mean, he liked him. He kept him on the practice squad, but not enough to make the active 53. So, now let's go to the offensive line. And Trent Williams got cut. No, I'm just kidding. I can't even say that with a straight face. Obviously, big Trent got on the roster. Big number 71. He's not going anywhere. Also, Colton McKivitz is going to be the primary backup at left tackle. Aaron Banks is penciled in to be our starting left guard, last year's second round pick. I remember we've talked about him in some depth, hoping that Aaron Banks can come along. And, he's been raved about all offseason from the offensive line coaches and Kyle. So Trent Williams has said really good things about him too. So I'd love to see all that. Aaron Banks, Blake Hance, backup offensive lineman picked up from Cleveland after their initial cuts. Our projected starting center, this one kind of came out of nowhere. I thought it was going to be either Donovan West or Daniel Brunskill, who I thought would have been the starting center, but ended up going with Jake Brendel instead. And Daniel Brunskill is penciled in as the backup center. We also have Spencer Burford, who was one of this year's draft picks, in the right guard position. And then Nick Zakelj as the backup. Like I said, I might be saying that wrong, so hopefully it's Zakelj. I think it's Zakelj. And then also McGlinchey coming back from injury, and also Jalen Moore. So those are the offensive linemen. So Trent Williams, McKivitz, Banks, Hance, Brendel, Brunskill, McGlinchey, Moore. And
Zakelj. I think that's what it is. I couldn't find his name. I was trying to find the name to help you there. I'm like, let me see. No, I think Zakelj. What else would it be?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's got to be Zakelj. And he didn't really, when he played in the preseason and I was watching, because I was like, you got to eventually say his name. Like, he never really, like, did anything good or bad of note. Obviously, like, he didn't jump off sides or do anything stupid. But, he didn't, like, really stand out either. But he made the roster, so he stood out enough to the coaches where it matters. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, and then we'll go over the captains, and then we'll wrap this episode up. Like we said, we don't have too much for you this week. On the defense, on the line, we have Javon Kinlaw at defensive tackle, Eric Armstead at defensive tackle, Kevin Givens, Big Kevin, at defensive tackle, Hassan Ridgeway, who came over from the Colts as a free agent, at defensive tackle. At the ends, we have Nick Bosa, fucking freak of nature, Nick Bosa, Big Bear, Charles Omenihu, who made the roster, and Jordan Willis, who's hung around the last couple seasons. So good to see him. We picked him up from the Jets a couple years back, and he's managed to stick around despite, we're always bringing in good players on the defensive line. They brought in Robert Kimdichie, and he didn't even make the cut. Former first-round pick ended up getting cut. They also have Samson Ebukam, Drake Jackson, our second-round pick, and returning Niner Kerry Hyder, who spent one season in Seattle and then came back home. So, very deep defensive line group. I would be very shocked if we're not in the top 10 of defenses in the NFL again. And that's just the defensive line group. At linebacker, obviously you have Fred Warner, Azeez Al-Shire, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who balled out last year, Dre Greenlaw, big play Dre, and Oren Burks, who tore it up all preseason. He played most every preseason game, like all the way through, and he ended up leading the Niners in tackles, I think, all three preseason games. So he's projected to mainly be a special teams guy, but if we need him to come in and step up for an entire game, he can do that. So
he deserves a shot after that. It's only preseason, but if you perform that well in every game, you deserve a shot.
Yeah, and he was brought over to help that special teams because obviously our fucking special teams were a train wreck last year, so we needed all the help we can get. Obviously, we brought in Ray McLeod for that reason as well. So we did linebacker, we did defensive line. Okay, let's do the secondary. So at corner, we have Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley. They're going to be the starters. Jason Verrett is also expected to at some point potentially compete for that nickel corner spot. They've been saying that if we have Mosley, Charvarius Ward, and Jason Verrett on the field at the same time, the Niners could have their best corner group that they've had under Shanahan, which would be really good, considering we've had some good ones. We had Sherm out there at one point, Sherman, Mosley. So we've had some good groups, but to hear that they could be even better. In his absence until Verrett gets back, Samuel Womack Jr., who had 2 interceptions of Jordan Love in the preseason, is slated to be our nickelback. He really showed out. He was probably one of my standout players of the entire preseason. I think that, he definitely earned that roster spot. And then we also have Ambry Thomas making the roster, last year's, one of last year's draft picks. And, probably my favorite name on the roster, Mr. Diamador Lenore. Yeah. So good to see those. I was worried about Ambry and Diamador. So I was glad to see them both make that roster. At safety, now this one's worth mentioning. A little bit going on here at the safety position. Jimmy Ward, who is, as we know, the number 96th ranked player for the first time in the NFL top 100 ranking. We talked about that last week. But he's going to start out the season missing the first 4 games of the season. So with Jimmy Ward out and on IR, we've, obviously Jimmy Ward's going to be on this roster, but he's not going to be listed here. As you'll see here, it just shows George Odom, who was another free agent acquisition at free safety. George Odom is expected to get a lot of those snaps as opposite of Talanoa Hufanga, who is he earned himself the starting strong safety job. Obviously, as you remember last year, Talanoa was the backup to Jaquiski Tart, and he played really well situationally for us last year and earned himself the starting job. Jaquiski ended up not being re-signed. He ended up going to the Eagles, and the Eagles ended up cutting Jaquiski in the final cuts, so he's a free agent. People were actually saying that the Niners could potentially bring him back with Jimmy Ward being out, which, if they could get him for the right price, maybe it makes sense. We'll have to see if that happens. But yeah, I expect right now Tarvarius Ward and George Odom to get a lot of those snaps opposite of Talanoa Hufanga. But those are the safeties. Obviously, Jimmy Ward is included in that as well. He's just on IR right now. And then as far as our specialists, no surprises here. Same guys as last year. Mitch Wisnowski, punter. Robbie Gould, kicker. Tabor Pepper, long snapper. So, same group coming back as well for the specialists. Yeah, and then just the other thing we have for you. Today, the 49ers named the 6 captains for the 2022 season. Not too many surprises here. Obviously, let's see here.
Surprises, yeah, really. So, they're all pretty solid choices.
Yeah. So, and they're all except for one returning captain. So
you thinking about Jimmy Ward? Is he? Yeah.
No, Jimmy Ward's actually in his second season as a captain. It's Nick Bosa's first season. So let's go through the list. So we've got Trent Williams, who's in his third season as a captain with San Francisco. And he was previously a captain in Washington for multiple seasons as well. Fred Warner's third season as a captain with the Niners. Fred Warner. George Kittle's fifth season as a captain. He's been a captain, I think, every year that he's been in the league, except his rookie year. Jimmy Ward's second season. Eric Armstead's third season as a captain, and then Nick Bosa's first season, which I'm kind of surprised he wasn't up there last season, but, good to see.
Jimmy Ward, but it makes more sense, I guess.
The Niners with it, Jimmy Ward's underrated from like an NFL standpoint. Like a lot of fans don't necessarily know Jimmy Ward, which, as a DB can be a good thing. Like everybody knows who Eli Apple is from getting burned in the Super Bowl. So being known as a defensive back isn't always a good thing. But Jimmy Ward's quietly been a good player for a long time. And other peers in the Niners locker room, like they know his value on the team. So he's always been highly regarded on the team. It's just so, but yeah, I think he was a captain either last year or the year before. Yeah. But that's pretty much all we have for you. Outside of that, we've got the Chicago Bears Sunday. So hopefully we can, get a deep dish serving of Chicago style ass kicking and go out there and roll the Bears for, like a 30-point margin or something. I don't think it's going to be that big of a margin this will be the truest test of Trey at this point.
It's going to depend on how Trey plays. That's really what's going to dictate the game, I think. Because, you already know the rest of the Niners is a pretty solid damn team.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's really
going to
come down to Trey.
The rest of the team is exactly the same as it was, last year, with a few minor additions like Ray McLeod and things like that. But yeah, the real X factor here is going to be how well Trey plays. If Trey comes out and balls, we could potentially beat the Bears, by 30. We could hang 40 points. But if Trey comes out and struggles, and Chicago's got a pretty good defense, so they could present some problems. Obviously, they don't have Khalil Mack anymore, thank God. But he went over to the Chargers, but they've got a lot of weapons. They got a lot of weapons, and I think they'll be a good team. So we'll have to tune in and find out, and we'll cover it next week. And hopefully we come away with that week 1 victory. I definitely expect that we will. All right, and that's all we have. So like and subscribe if you're not already. We definitely grew a lot this past week. We really appreciate all of you, and thanks for your continued dedication and support. and have a great night.
After week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to do it for the Extra Point Show this week. If you like what you saw, make sure that you like and subscribe. Definitely helps us out a lot. And it'll keep you up with the latest and greatest content. So I hope you enjoy the show. Have a great night, everybody.